encompassing submission. Matisse leaves with her sort of swinging exaggeration. Matisse insisted that sculpture was the way fully to understand a figure. An outline drawing was helpful, but real comprehension came not from just looking and drawing, but also shaping with your hands. This drawing of a bronze to the left by the great animal painter, sculptor Barret, of a jaguar has caught an unlucky jackrabbit. Matisse drew several views of this and then made a plaster replica at the bottom, which he had sent out to be copied in bronze. The kind of outline drawing became a specialty, though, of Matisse, as we're going to see. But he considered the function a drawing would serve before he chose what medium he'd use, and especially here, he responded to his own reaction to the subject. And when he drew, for example, after this painting by Delacroix in the Louvre, a subject of sort of violent subject, he was stirred to sort of attack the paper with a furious energy of his own. Working at home, he had put a model in front of a mirror and painted her from behind at an angle, so we got a bit of her reflection and a lot of her back. Both mirrors and women's backs will come back to us, to Matisse pretty frequently. Or at the right, he put the model on a stand facing him, so we see the artist and the model. These ideas were kind of impressionist territory, and Matisse knew how to go there with terrific confidence in his own vision, plus very solid technique with paint. As he turned 30, Matisse was painting, exhibiting, selling even, not getting much money, but gaining respect. In 1901, he was elected to the Society of Independent Artists, a collective of Cézanne and Gauguin and Toulouse-Lautrec and Pissarro and others who had broken in 1884 with the official salon system and its conservative juries in favor of open admissions to the exhibition. A financial scandal in his wife's family brought Matisse and his wife and 3 children back north to Beaune to live for a couple of years. In general, their life there was miserable, without much progress artistically and a lot of discouragement. But he kept working. The most poignant thing he painted was this. In his dim, chilly studio in the attic, there's an easel and a palette and a painting and a few flowers in a tiny vase. But out the window was this blazing bright sunshine, flowers, light, color. It's a picture of pitting poverty, isolation, with a vision of another life for the artist. In 1904, things took a turn for the better. The discerning Paris dealer Ambroise Vollard gave Matisse his first one-man exhibition, and he went to spend the summer at Saint-Tropez, close to where his new friend Paul Signac was living. Matisse reveled in the delicious southern light. Here at the left, the sunlight in the room where this painting, at the Gardner Museum, where this painting hangs, and like me, you didn't notice what was up there above the door. The light is good, though, and the picture escaped getting stolen in 1990. Matisse was Paul Signac himself, who was 6 years older, well-established. He'd inherited the informal leadership movement, or divisionists, from Seurat after his eye conditioned by Cézanne, as he had done with still life. His mentor Signac saw things differently and encouraged Matisse to try again, try applying dots of color patiently. Signac spots of color were a little more varied in shape than Seurat's, but similar in the way he used blue and red to create luminous lavender shadows. You can see in the big detail that there's very little drawing apparent, mostly masses of yellow and red and blue spots. They vary in density for different degrees of light and dark, and they vary in color, creating color zones by means of optical mixing in our brains. Proto-pixels, you could call them. You saw Matisse try a still life 5 years earlier, but it didn't come naturally to him. Here's what did come naturally, a more traditional kind of sketching in oil with patches made of bigger strokes of particular colors, and that creating in the process an animated paint surface, even impulsive looking, with bigger zones of saturated color, which suited his temperament, but which evidently annoyed and alienated Signac. This composition of his wife and young son by the sea at sunset was the starting point of a bigger project, a real test for Matisse. Make an ambitious figure composition using his own version of neo-impressionism. The next step towards that was a small oil sketch for a scene set on the same bluff overlooking the Gulf of Saint-Tropez, but now with a quartet of female bathers standing, sitting, and reclining. And in the detail here you see the mother is there, the woman robed in blue, his wife Amélie, who's set out a white cloth for tea. The small child is there, standing in the middle. A sailing vessel has arrived of a type that the Mediterranean fishermen had been using since ancient Roman times. We're somewhere between modern life and an imaginary classical antiquity. In fact, a place which for centuries artists' imaginations had been dwelling. Recently, Signac, who had painted this enormous and spectacular composition 9 years before, called In the Time of Harmony. It's 13 feet wide.
Well, it's mostly like, hey, I'm doing this.
It's an allegory of the future. And anarchy will have changed everything. Like a lot of artists in his circle, Signac himself was an anarchist of a sort of philosophical bent rather than an agitator or bomb thrower. The title of the picture was originally In the Time of Anarchy, which he believed would be a good time.
Word.
He wanted to show the Mediterranean coast after the government overthrow, when the formerly oppressed peoples would have leisure to spend in sunshine and shade, when figs and flowers would be free for the picking. Down at the shore, painters would paint, and in the distance, liberated workers would dance in a circle, and so on. When he got back to Paris, Matisse made a much larger study, a much larger version on the left. You might compare it with the study. And I'll show you in a minute the large one and a detail. And then I'll be quiet for a minute.
I might have a studio visit with that, or I might visit the studio of the Ivy lady who's hooking up, well, I can't really talk about it too loud. The Meta. Oops. Hurry up so you can eat my chicken wings.
Matisse was making a major statement. His title, Luxe, Calme et Volupté, was one that just about everybody at his exhibition would recognize. It's the last line of the refrain of a poem, a short ballad by Baudelaire from the Fleur de Mal called Invitation to the Voyage. It's one of the most familiar poems of the age, addressed to a lover, suggesting that she come away with him. And they live together, là-bas, in the southern land of delight and beauty and luxury and warmth. Utopian, but for hedonist escapists, let's say. The picture is almost 4 feet wide, and it made a very big impression when he exhibited it at in the autumn of the following year. Matisse produces halftones, and not with small dots of contrasting colors that merge in the viewer's brains, but also with larger spots and dashes at wider intervals, and creates highlights at the edges of nudes by using clotted red spots to outline them, and giving a weird kind of aura to them. And he cheats in places, reverting to blue linear outlines in several figures. Matisse found the system hard to use consistently, and pretty soon he abandoned it. Matisse looked back at this period and said about the system of divisionism and his liberation from it, Fauvism overthrew the tyranny of divisionism. One can't live in a household that's too well kept, a house kept by country aunts. Still, when it was shown in the independent exhibition, it got a lot of attention. Matisse had received an ancient, taken and revived an ancient theme with energy and verve. Signac himself bought it for a princely